I can't see you signaling that we're live. Yes. Oh. Oh. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the November 17th regular meeting of the Chico Unified School District Board of Education. We are going to go into closed session and asked if there was anyone wanted to comment on closed session. Seeing no one here, we will recess into closed session and return at 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and the board will come to order. We were in closed session and recessed until now when we're going to begin our regular session meeting. While we were in closed session, the board voted by a vote of 3-1 to pass a resolution to reject a claim brought pursuant to the Tort Claims Act, to give the claimant notice of the denial. Voting aye was Landau, Robinson, and Kaiser. Voting no was Dalby. Abstaining was Tennis. Thank you. Okay, we are now to the flag salute. If you would join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible. Thank you. Okay, the student reports is first.
Absolutely. Well, we are really excited to have some students here tonight, and I would like to invite Principal Betancourt up from Rosedale Elementary School, and she's going to introduce us to our speakers.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. My name is Joanne Betancourt, and I'm the principal at Rosedale Elementary School, the Spanish dual immersion school here in Chico. We are excited to share the progress and renovation of the Rosedale Garden. We have some very special guests here tonight, along with our assistant principal, Joanna Campos Castañeda, who will be sharing a slideshow with you. Before I hand over the mic to them, I'd like to introduce to you Isaac, Santiago, and Abby. And I'd like to thank them and their families for bringing them here to share with the school board. Enjoy.
Rosedale Garden Project. Jardín de Esperanza, Garden of Hope.
Next slide, please.
Garden history. During the spring of 2018, Rosedale Garden was relocated and enhanced via the help of Rotary After School Program and volunteers. Garden in despair. In spring of 2020, the pandemic hit and the garden was extremely neglected. Community volunteer days. The Rosedale community came on 3 occasions to work on cleaning up the garden on the weekends. Students, parents, and community members created vision what they hope for the future of the garden. The input from the community members was used to continue enhancing the garden. I really like the garden because I love the fact that all of the community of Rosedale came to help and fix the garden up.
Hola, mi nombre es Santiago, estoy en segundo grado y voy a Rosedale. Hace unas semanas había un día de voluntario en el colegio, entonces decidí ayudar con mi familia. Pinté las cajas de abono con mi familia. Espero hacer más voluntariado en el futuro. Hi, my name is Santiago. I'm in 2nd grade. I go to Rosedale. A few weeks ago, there was a volunteer day at my school. I decided to help with my family. I painted the compost bins. I hope to do more volunteering in the future.
These are just some pictures of our volunteer days.
Generous donations. Mulch, wood for garden boxes, dirt and bark, volunteers, and labor. Future plans of the garden. Composting, students working in garden at recess, class projects, NGSS, STEM, extension of our wellness center, after school program activities, providing fresh food for the cafeteria. My name is Abigail. The garden is a really pretty place and it makes me happy to be in nature. El jardín es muy bonito y me siento feliz para este.
You're doing so good.
Estar.
You're okay, honey. It's okay.
So great.
Hey, you know what? Everybody who gets in front of an audience for the first time gets a little teary-eyed, everybody.
It's true. But you know what's awesome? You just did it in 2 languages, so hats off to you. That is outstanding. Good job.
Well, I'll help complete the slideshow, and then Joe can speak a little bit. But we named the garden Jardín de Esperanza in Spanish, which means Garden of Hope. Our teachers voted on that. Students came up with some ideas, and then we voted on that name. And we call it the Garden of Hope because of the different ways we're going to use it to encourage students to learn more about how food is produced. We actually already harvested our first crop, and the students ate the lettuce in the cafeteria. And we're going to be using it for our wellness center as well, just to help students who need to be regulated to take a walk and relax.
All right, I think that completes our presentation. We're excited. I think you saw the renovation and it had a complete transformation. So we want to thank all the community members who came out and helped and volunteered. And Joanna kind of took the garden on. That was her special project, one of her first projects when she came on this year. So we're happy to have the garden looking great, and the kids are just dying to get out there. Every day at lunch recess we get a call on the walkie. It's today garden day. The kids are asking for you, Joanna. So it's been really great. And the kids are eating it in the cafeteria, so we're excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do
Okay,
want to thank,
Superintendent. Yeah.
well, I just wanted to thank our students for being here. It is a nerve-wracking to have to speak in front of so many people, but you were fabulous, and you will continue to do this and get better and better. But the fact you're doing it in 2 languages is just amazing. So thank you, parents, for bringing the students. You are welcome to stay, but if you need to get home and do homework, you can do that as well. Okay. We're going to move on. As we do at each of our regular board meetings, we really we've seen examples of outstanding student work and our wonderful students, and we'd like to recognize staff who help get our students to that point. So we're going to start off tonight with Kristen Schrock from Little Chico Creek.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kristen Schrock, and I appreciate the opportunity being here. I haven't spoken with you yet and in a mask, so forgive me. I'm here tonight to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about one of our wonderful staff members at Little Chico Creek. She thinks she's here to tell you how smoothly things are going at our school, but actually we're here to honor her. So Lisa Gampel came to our school about 5 years ago as our attendance clerk, and quickly she became an integral part of our office. She went over and beyond. She did things just to help teachers. She went over and beyond to help students. One example of how quickly she became part of our school, Early on, when she joined our staff, she came back. She left at 2 o'clock every day. She came back for a band performance. And this is a woman who has children of her own at home. She came back to school to watch a band performance just because she wanted to support our students and get to know them better. And that was my first clue that we had a really special person on our hands. In the spring of 2020, as everybody went into lockdown and pivoted into online learning, Lisa became our long-term office manager sub. And that position is a really difficult position anyway, to learn it on the fly and to learn it as we are all figuring out whatever remote learning looks like. She did an amazing job having to really recreate that position. Asking so many of our staff members, what describes Lisa? The words that kept coming up over and over were kindness, patience, professionalism, efficient, fun, caring, loving. She is truly the first person and the face of Little Chico Creek. She does a beautiful job to make all of our families feel welcome, all of our students and our staff. Another example of what a gem she is, just this afternoon she came into my office waving her job description. She said, "You know, I've never really read this before. And apparently I need to be doing a lot more for you than I am. So what would you like me to do?" And so she doesn't know this, but when we come back from break, she's taking on all the discipline. But really, I'm just appreciative of the chance to honor her with Superintendent's Award tonight. So Lisa, everyone behind you loves you, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We'd like to give you this certificate. Water bottle to keep hydrated. Get it. A whole bunch of people back there. Thank you so much.
Group picture.
I'd now like to welcome up to the podium Mike Allen, principal at Chapman Elementary School.
Oh,
Snap
Laura.
this moment in time.
Oh, right. Let's see if I can get this working. Right. Got it. All right. Hello, everyone. So tonight we're here to celebrate a teacher who's been in education for 33 years. 30 years right here. 30 years right here in Chico Unified. Within that time, she's only worked at 2 schools, Rosedale and Chapman. She's been teaching as long as some of my teachers have been alive. I first met Laura Manning when she was on the sports boosters at Chico High, and she was passionate then, just as passionate as she is today. She's one of the hardest working teachers I've ever met. She's the one teacher that I have to go check her classroom before I leave and tell her to go home before I leave every night. She cares about everyone. She cares about the students, the staff, and even her administrator. Laura Manning, or as we like to call her, Mama Manning, is one of a kind. I never have to worry about her when she's in her classroom. The only time I do have to worry about her is when she's in my office, because she tells it like it is. And usually she's right. Not all the time, but most of the time. Any one of us would love to have a career like Laura Manning's. And as many of you already know, she's planning on retiring at the end of this year.
Oh,
Still trying to get her to stay one more year. One more year. One more year. So we are losing one of the best teachers I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I will personally miss working with one of my good friends. So Laura Manning, it's my absolute pleasure to nominate you for the Superintendent's Award. Congratulations.
You can be nice.
There you go. Just turn around, Jim's gonna grab a quick picture with her.
I had the pleasure of observing a morning in Laura Manning's classroom. Absolutely, not only inspiring, but I was exhausted by the time I left, watching what she was able to do with all those little kindergartners. Thank you, Laura, for everything you've done.
Thank you, board, for allowing us to honor our employees. And thank you to all of our staff that turned out to support our two honorees. That's really appreciated. So with that, I will turn it back to you, President Robinson.
Thank you. On to item 6, announcements. I have 2. Dr. Kaiser?
Yes, I had the privilege of being at the open house for CTE at PV High School. This is an enormous building and renovation that was funded by the community and by grants written by several of the major teachers here. Culinary arts, you not only got to look at it, you got to eat it, take it with you. The medical unit had students in there, athletes who had been banged up during practice and were getting treated. And then the sports medicine area, they really have all of the information that a student might need to practice and potentially think about taking on a medical career. So it was very, very impressive, and I encourage all of you, if you get the chance to do the tour, I've heard now from 2 different people that the vendors said they have never seen anything at this level from here to San Francisco. Oh. And maybe even we show up San Francisco. So quite spectacular. So thanks to all the teachers, the students, and of course, our facilities, people who just did a phenomenal job. All right, thank you.
Ms. Dalby?
I don't really want to follow that up because that's a lot worth celebrating. The presentation by our Rosedale folks actually reminded me that I just wanted to make sure that everybody in our school community knows that Butte Environmental Council offers composting workshops in addition to our recycling and oil recycling workshops. Additionally, we just added a new program through Butte County that is for community air protection. So these are interactive workshops where an instructor comes in for a day and spends the day teaching students about those things, and it's anywhere from kindergarten all the way on up, and it's levelized for grade level appropriate curriculum. So if there's any interest out there for those composting workshops as we build our composting bins, super excited that Butte Environmental Council offers that. So feel free to reach out to the organization.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Our next item is item number 7, items from the floor. I believe we have 10 signed up. Bill, do we have a?
Those are actually under 10.1.3. So we have no items from the floor.
Oh, I'm
We do
sorry.
have speakers under items 10.1.3.
That's what my note says. Okay, so we are on then to number 8, negotiations update. Mr. Hanlon?
I have nothing new to report at this time. We will be meeting with CUTA on December 9th, and we have some tentative dates with CSEA soon.
Thank you. I do just want to note, we've been discussing with CSEA some increases in some of the classified position salaries, and I noticed it was up on our website today, so I would suggest anyone who has someone out there in the community that's interested in, I believe we have custodial.
Custodians, instructional aides, bus ride-alongs, nutrition, and was there another one? Campus supervisors.
Okay.
Positions are
Great.
available.
Yeah, the information is all up on the website.
I would like to just add that I'd strongly encourage anybody that knows college students out there that some of these jobs would be really ideal for a part-timer who's trying to pay their way through college too. So, look into it because there's a lot of really good opportunity there with the district.
Thank you. Okay, we're on now to our consent calendar. The consent calendar can be acted on in one motion, but we need first to find out if anyone would like to pull anything off of the consent calendar. Okay, no one stepping forward, then I need a motion.
I move the passing of the consent calendar.
I have a motion from Dr. Kaiser, a second from Mr. Landau. All those in favor, board members by voice.
Dalby, aye.
Robinson, aye.
Lando, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Thank you, board. 5-0. Our discussion action calendar. We have item 10.1.1. This is the first reading of a revised, updated new board policy. Ms. Daly, you're going to introduce this again. This is our second reading, so this is...
Actually, this is there's two items on here. The first one is a brand new batch of 19 policies. This is the first reading for that new batch. So we will be bringing this back in December for approval from the board, but at this point, it's the opportunity so that our public and board can see the revisions and have the opportunity to comment on them either through public comment via email or sharing at our next board meeting. We do ask that if there are suggested revisions from the board, please be sure to share those with staff, and we look forward to bringing these back at our December meeting.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, discussion action. Now we're at 10.1.2. This is the policy that we had in the first reading at the last meeting. Ms. Keene, is Tina going to?
Actually,
she's
if there
there.
are questions, Tina would be happy to address those.
Yeah.
This is the second reading, so if there are any questions, please feel free to ask those, or if there's suggestions for revisions. Otherwise, we can move forward as presented.
It was pretty straightforward. We didn't have any questions last time. Are there any now? Have we had any requests for public comment?
We have not.
Okay, are there any motions associated with this item, board? I need a motion to approve. This is the second reading.
I move approval.
I have a motion from Mr. Landau, a second from Dr. Oh, ventriloquism going on here. Okay, a motion from Mr. Tennis, a second from Dr. Kaiser. No further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, board. That was 5-0. I can't see Erica, but I assume she's getting this. Okay, we're good. Okay, our next item is discussion action, resolution number 1560-21, a resolution calling for state officials to honor exemptions for the COVID-19 vaccine for students and staff. Mr. Hanlon.
Actually, I'll go ahead and take that one. At our last board meeting, the board requested staff to draft a resolution that honors exemptions for the COVID-19 vaccine for both students and staff. Attached is a draft resolution. As always, this is a draft, and the board does have the ability to review and make changes. This was a draft written by staff, And I will be very honest, I cut and pasted from different examples from across the state, including the Durham example that was mentioned at the board meeting. So with that, I will turn it back over to the board for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do we have anyone who would like to speak to or ask questions regarding the resolution that's being presented?
Madam
Mr.
President,
Tennis?
I'd like to, before we move into public comment, if we're close to that, I have a statement that I'd like to address the public
You've got the
prior
floor.
to it. So I feel that the board has quite a bit of clarity on what the issues are surrounding this proposed resolution. I just want you, the audience, to know that I think that the testimony we received from the public 2 weeks ago was, in my opinion, pretty well received by the board. We took action to draft the resolution, and I was pleasantly surprised by the feeling and the tenor in the room. The reason I'm saying this is because without having spoken to any of my colleagues, my crystal ball is telling me that some version of this resolution is going to pass tonight. I don't have a crystal ball, but to the extent that I do, that's what I'm seeing in it. So I'm just telling you that so that you don't have to feel, each one of you, that you need to use your entire 3 minutes. If you want to just get up and simply state, some simplified version of your position. We've had a lot of time, I think, to stew in this issue. So I just wanted to make that statement so we didn't feel like we needed to drag it out for no particular reason. That's all.
Thank you.
Kind of like I just did.
You get to sit up here and do that, sir. We have 10 requests for addressing item 10.1.3. It's all yours, guys.
Okay, our first speaker is a student, Jericho Bertania, in person. Jericho, can I interrupt you just for a second? Just a reminder, Madam President, can you explain the rules for this evening?
Yes, Jericho.
Thank you.
Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes. You can take it all, or you can choose not to. Their timing will be at 30 seconds left. The yellow card will go up. When your 3 minutes is up, the red card will go up, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jericho Bertagna. I'm a freshman at Chico High, and all I want to say is your rights to choose to get vaccinated are just as important as my rights to choose not to get the COVID vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Okay, next we have Christy Rose. Christy Rose in person.
Hi. I'll be really quick. My daughter goes to school here at Marigold, and she is excelling emotionally and academically, and I would like her to stay here. In the event a vaccine mandate was passed, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, and I would have to pull her out of school, which I don't think would be in her best interest. And I think that goes for a lot of the other parents too. So I just am hoping you guys can do everything in your power to keep our children safe. Okay, thank you.
Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Joe Hughes in person. Joe Hughes.
Good evening.
Yeah, go ahead and raise it.
That's fine. I'll just do one of these. I appreciate the gentleman's comments, and I'm certainly hoping that the resolution does move forward. My son is a senior at PV High School, and he's having a great year being back in school. We moved over here from Lake County, where online learning wasn't working. Basically, the whole county shut down. It's kind of a different world over here, so we're definitely appreciative of that. I just hope that the school board, when you guys think about the impact of what this does and why our world has been turned upside down, and truly know that it isn't ever really been about health. It's been about power. It's been about money. There's so many arbitrary things. The fact that we can go into restaurants and sit down and eat, not wear a mask, but put it on when you go to the bathroom. Our governor going out to eat at the French Laundry because it's such a dangerous thing. There's just so many examples of things that have been bad. I've been a firefighter paramedic for 22 years. I have not missed a single day of work. I see people with AIDS, hepatitis, norovirus, COVID, all these things every day I'm at work, and I haven't missed a single day of work. So it's not this overwhelmingly deadly thing that they want us to believe that it is. COVID is here to stay, like the flu and everything else. We've got to learn how to live with it. We've got to choose, are we going to live, or are we going to stay hidden in a shelter, in a bomb shelter, waiting to be bombed, for a metaphor. Life is about living, and we should not be sacrificing our kids, risking our kids or our employment because we will or won't get a vaccine. It's about choice. We're Americans. This is what it's about. That's why we're the greatest country in the world, because we have the ability to make these choices and choose how we want to live. Me able to keep my job as a firefighter, currently I have to be tested or I've got to be vaccinated. Yet somebody who's homeless or draws welfare and unemployment doesn't have to be tested. Therein lies another hypocritical thing. So I realize I didn't mean to take this much time, but please think about those things. And life is about living. Let us live it and let us make our own choices. Thank you.
Our next speaker.
Okay, our next speaker is James Bishop. James Bishop.
Hello, I'm back, conveying 2,500 hours of research, 3 minutes at a time. So I had in the past argued that, I hope convincingly, that the elements behind all of the things that have happened are very political and not very much about health, not because there's no health issue, but because the nature of the enforcement revealed itself as political. I used the teachers' unions, the LA County Teachers Union statements about defunding the police and closing all the charter schools in order to get kids back to school as one example. I talked about the emails that showed collusion between the CDC and the teachers' unions in order to keep schools closed all year when virtually no science was supporting that idea. Last time I was here, I showed that when the CDC Advisory Committee met to vote on the vaccine, they very clearly said we should not administer this thing to the general population of kids, and we should definitely and absolutely not mandate this. They said it very clearly. They went so far as to explain that these comparisons with the MRR and other vaccines as justifications did not make any sense and were not appropriate. The CDC then met, the advisory panel, and similarly made very similar statements. And then Rochelle Walensky came along and said, let's give it to everybody. And then Newsom says, let's force the kids to take it. So today, this is slightly different, but I think it's related if you think about it. OSHA suspended implementation and enforcement of Biden's COVID mandate. And the Fifth Circuit Court, which had originally said there's grave statutory and constitutional issues with this mandate, then the Biden administration came back and made some arguments, and they responded today, I believe, saying that this OSHA concept, this OSHA enforcing this thing was a staggeringly overreach, and ordered it to take no steps to implement or enforce the mandate until further court order. So you might wonder, when I was growing up, neither Democrats nor Republicans would put themselves in a position to have people just go, you idiot, this is completely unconstitutional, what are you doing? I mean, that's essentially what's happened. And there was some foreshadow that the Biden administration even knew that would probably happen. So what is going on, is kind of what I'm asking you guys. When I grew up, I grew up during the AIDS pandemic, and I remember there was this, we should close the bathhouses, because this had a 10,000 times higher case mortality rate than COVID, to put it in context. And we didn't really know where it was going to go, what was going to happen. But people on the left said, No, that would be a severe infringement on people's liberties and rights. That's a slippery slope, you know. And looking back, I think I agree with the left on that. And then after 9/11, there was all this talk of like, we are going down some dangerous roads. We're putting infrastructure in place which is going to deprive people of their liberties and freedoms and their privacy. And looking back, I think they were right. So I don't know if there's any Democrats here. I think there's at least 4 here. And I just want to ask you, like, what the hell happened? You know?
Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Renee Gramps. Renee Gramps.
Hi, everybody. Thank you again for your time. Was here last time, and it was a lot of education floating around the room that day. It was a lot of fun. I'm here, obviously, in support of the choice resolution. I'm part of PAM, the Parents Against Mandates, and we're trying to unify all these school districts in Butte County to have the same resolution, and that's just pro-choice, that people get to decide whether to, move forward or not. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this, but maybe just by a show of hands, if this doesn't pass tonight, I'm curious how many are if you're willing or interested in removing your children from school by a raise of hands. Just wanted you guys to see that. Thank you.
Okay, our
Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Prairie Francia.
Hello. So I guess I'm just a little bit confused. I felt like last time we were pretty clear that we wanted what she was just talking about, the United, Butte United, where we just say that we don't want the mandate at all. But it sounds like you guys are just voting to enforce the recognition of the exemptions. Is that correct? That's it?
The resolution is in the board packet.
Yeah, so I'm just like not totally understanding. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there, that we really hope that it's not just enforcing. Like, of course it's going to be enforced because that's what it says. It has to be enforced. But we should be united on this one, I feel like.
Madam President, may I be recognized?
We will get a chance as a board to discuss. Keep her question in mind and see if you can talk to it. We're not supposed to back and forth dialogue with speakers.
Actually, my understanding is that only applies to items from the floor, that we don't respond to speakers. And actually, I wasn't intending to respond to the speaker, but just for point of clarification, I think that that's only for items from the floor, that we don't interact with speakers.
Okay, you're not comfortable with discussing the item next?
I'm sorry?
The board's discussion will happen next.
I was going to offer that staff could maybe clarify for her what the substance of this resolution is.
We will be doing that under the next part of the agenda, as lengthy as you choose to.
Okay, well, we're still standing to be united with like Durham and the other schools to completely say, no, we don't want the mandate at all. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Okay, the next speaker is Patrick Conklin. Patrick Conklin.
Good evening. While I have 2 children that attend Chico Unified, I'm also here to speak to you tonight as a school district administrator in a neighboring county. I've experienced all of the same things that you've faced these last 20 months and understand the challenges you continue to deal with during this pandemic. But tonight I'm here to respectfully ask that you pass this resolution. We all know the data shows that children generally are not at risk of hospitalization or death. Of the 600,000 cases in children under 18, only 37 have died. Although that is tragic, this equates to about 0 fatality rate. Several of the FDA advisory committee members responsible for voting to recommend the vaccine for children 5 to 11 expressed concern regarding a mandatory vaccine for children to attend in-person instruction. Chico Unified has operated in-person instruction since October 2020 safely without a vaccine, with little to no transmission on campus when following the current health and safety guidelines. Chico Unified community members have expressed concerns regarding the vaccine, including the lack of research, long-term impacts on children. Many indicate their children would not attend in-person instruction if the vaccine was mandated. The impact on kids not being in school is far greater than the health risks associated with the virus. If a vaccine is required in lieu of weekly testing for staff, the district will struggle to retain qualified employees for both certificated and classified positions. I personally believe the vaccine is safe and in most cases prevents serious illness or death in adults and children, which is why I'm vaccinated. My 13-year-old's vaccinated, and someday my younger may as well. However, this vaccine is not an effective way to prevent transmission. Over half the staff members in my district who have contracted COVID in the last 3 months were fully vaccinated. None of the current immunizations required for in-person instruction under SB 277 have 6-month boosters, which makes this vaccine very different than the other 10. Since children under 18 have essentially a 0% fatality rate, a mandatory vaccine is unnecessary. I think this board should pass the resolution. I would also encourage all districts in Butte County, including the county superintendent of schools, to unite behind a similar resolution. I believe that if one large district like this passes something like this, others will do it. Although doing so will have no immediate impact at the state level, it will encourage other districts to follow your lead. The only way to prevent the vaccine from becoming law is if districts declare how this will affect students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay, our next speaker is Justin Larios. Justin Larios.
Thank you, guys. Justin Larios, father of 4. I wanted to thank you for leading the charge last meeting and thank the board for its unanimous vote. A friend of mine who thinks vastly different than I do shared a video with me of her children getting vaccinated. And my first thought was, that is beautiful, that she had the choice to be able to do that. I want that same choice. I'm not saying I'll never get them vaccinated, but we just don't have the data. It's a great thing to be able to choose. You know, as we see the mandates falling flat at a federal level, let's not give that over to the state. Let's make a decision here. And like other people have said, I think we should include the same wording that Durham has had in their letter. You know, when you administrators and teachers got into this business, I'm sure it was because of the kids. And you weren't signing up to be an enforcement arm of the government. So let's not let that happen now. We see you guys in the community, out and about, eating at restaurants and shopping, but yet during the day you guys are enforcing these crazy rules. Let's not do that here today. Let's have the courage to stand up for freedom and stand up for what's right and parents' and teachers' choice to choose. So I encourage you guys to stay the course that we set in motion last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay, our next speaker is Phaedra Morrill. Phaedra Morrill in person.
Good evening. I'm sure you remember me, Phaedra LaRocca Morrill, farmer, business owner, LaRocca Vineyards, parent, and a concerned woman. I encourage you to continue forward with the draft that is being presented. However, I'm up here to encourage you further. You guys are elected school board to stay strong with our commitment to no COVID-19 mandates for our children and staff. The draft that I read, which I believe is the draft that's on, the third paragraph from the bottom, it says that the request to, quote, allow for clear exemptions, and then it continues, unquote, which included personal, religious, and or medical exemptions. We're not needing exemptions if we do not allow a mandate. I would like Chico Unified School District Board to see that that we're all here, and we need to tell the state of California that we're a strong district that refuses to accept Gavin Newsom's mandate, period. Please consider changing that paragraph to state our school district will not accept nor support any COVID-19 mandate for our children, staff, or volunteers for in-person class, or in-person learning, excuse me. So again, if we don't have a mandate, we don't need exemptions. Thank you.
Next speaker,
Okay,
Mr. Tennis.
I have a question for Phaedra.
Yes, ask a clarification
You're
question.
not okay with a process that enables any parent here to sign a form saying, we choose not to do this?
If that's the only outlet, then I guess, of course, we're okay with it. It's an option, we have a choice, but my fear is that if we allow a mandate with the exceptions, then the government's gonna come in and not allow for exceptions, like, which they have already clearly have done. So to stand strong and just say our district is not going to allow the mandate, then we've already set precedent that they can't further take our rights away.
Thank you.
okay, Madam
Next
President,
speaker.
we have one more speaker. It's a phone call. This is Jessica, no last name, Jessica. She was listed twice on our form, and she'd prefer to speak during items from the floor.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tennis.
Yes?
We're to the point where we can get to the point where we can begin full discussion,
Okay,
so.
public comment is over?
Yes, I believe so. We've
right.
had our 10. Now what we need in order to open up for board discussion is I need a motion associated with this agenda item.
So I'm open to recommendations, Madam President, or from our parliamentarian, or from staff. I would like to propose a little amendment to this document.
If you put it on the floor, sir, yes, you may do that.
Okay, well,
In order to get it on the floor, I'd like a motion to, no, actually, if you want to amend it before we,
okay,
yeah.
I'll try that.
No, your motion to amend would be in order.
Okay, I'll move to amend this draft resolution. Thank you, Madam President. And my motion would be to, in my opinion, strengthen, if you will, this resolution to the level that the Durham resolution is at. I think we would add a paragraph at the bottom of it saying, kind of verbatim what's in the Durham resolution that was on the agenda packet last time. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Chico Unified School District will petition the state of California that the COVID-19 vaccine be a recommendation and not a requirement for students and staff. This word petition is not highly specific, in my opinion. I mean, it could mean we're going to send them another nasty letter. It could mean we're going to take them to court. I mean, it's pretty broad. But I would like to see this resolution go to that level, and so I offered this as an amendment.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second the amendment, partially because I'd like clarification from staff. And so I think for the discussion, it needs a second in order to discuss and ask for questions from the staff.
Do we have that amendment written anywhere that we could have to use for discussion purposes?
It's on the last agenda packet, under item,
Okay, we'll wait. You do have it?
Yes, I have a copy, I have a paper
Okay.
copy of the Durham one.
Any way of getting us access other than, we can find it through getting on last week's agenda. Huh? Or 2 weeks ago. Mr. Tennis, do you have that language?
it's right in front of me on the screen, but does somebody have the ability to manipulate what's on this up here? Does somebody have the ability to open a new tab? Could you maybe pull up our last agenda packet from November 3rd? If you go up on that, go up. Sorry. Agendas, the circle on the big dot right there on the top on the right-hand side. No, it's a circle that says agendas on it.
It's the last.
Yes. Just click on that. Wait a minute. It's thinking. Just wait. 11/03/2021. Scroll down through all the fine print that confuses everyone on these agendas, sometimes me included. There you go. Down. Right there. 611. Up a little bit. Right there. Click on that. Go to the right. Scroll all the way down, and then it's the PDF to the right of that. Up one. That's it right there. Nope. Too far. That's it right there.
Who's the one that's manipulating?
It's in the download folder. There you go. Scroll down to the bottom page. There it is, right there. That's it. Be it further resolved that the governing board, if you can make that larger, of the Chico Unified School District will petition the state of California that the COVID-19 vaccine be a recommendation and not a requirement for students and staff.
It's right up there where it says 76% there.
Ms. Dalby, were you going to speak to? Mr. Tennis, do you want to speak to your,
Yeah, I'll just give you the hard sell again. It's just kind of like, it's not highly specific. It's just sort of, we really don't want this, and we'll take further action to petition the state if you move toward a uncompromising universal mandate.
So my question, hopefully for staff to be able to clarify, if you have insight, because I know that you did not write this line, that this is Durham School District's piece of resolution. The concept of petitioning the state about a recommendation or requirement or mandate, what is that process, or what does that look like, or what does that mean?
That I do not know. These were Durham's words, the petition, so I don't know what that means. Just looking it up, There's different definitions that are to gather signatures. So, I did not use the word petition, just knowing that it was going to be the 5 board members that were signing. But certainly, it is the board's resolution, so if the board wants to change that word, by all means, the board has the power to do so.
Okay, I'm going to refer to the language that we have in the resolution before an amendment, if the amendment were passed. And it's the, now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Chico Unified School District respectfully asks that the state of California legislature to not mandate the COVID-19 vaccine, but to instead allow parents, guardians, and staff to make the decision best for them and their family in regards to medical procedures, including the COVID-19 vaccine. It seems to me, Mr. Tennis, that we have done, without the confusion of a petitioning process that we don't even know what it is, that we have in fact stated what you're asking.
Why do we have to ask?
It says to not mandate.
I mean, I think that, it should say like, we're going to sue you or something like that. So, I mean, I'm just proposing an amendment. You don't have to vote for it, Madam President. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well,
I mean,
it's not me, it's the board's decision,
I
sir.
understand, but
Yes, no, I understand. Okay, we've had an amendment, a motion for an amendment, and a second, and discussion. Is there any further discussion? All those in, Dr. Kaiser.
I just feel like that actually the language that we have in our resolution is clearer and as strong, because it's saying not to mandate, but to allow parents and guardians and staff to make the decision for their families and themselves in regards to medical procedures. So I really don't see what the proposed amendment adds at all.
I think that the resolution as drafted is good, and I like it. Okay, I don't want to.
Do you want to withdraw your amendment?
No, I don't. I don't want to withdraw.
Okay.
I like my proposed amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to withdraw if you don't want. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. It fails 3-2. Okay, back on the original resolution as proposed.
So do I need to make a motion on that, or have I already done that?
Sir, you can do any number of amendments you wish. You're not restricted. If you want to move to approve the resolution as presented, now would be a time to do that, if that's your desire.
I move to approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I've got a motion by Mr. Tennis, a second by Dr. Kaiser. Is there any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Actually, it should be it's a roll
I'm
call.
sorry. Caitlin, did I miss?
Yeah, it's a roll call vote.
Do you want to, because the last one was
It's
split?
not about what I want, but yes, it's a roll call vote.
No, you are correct. Because the last one was split, we do have to take a roll call. So we'll begin, Mr. Tennis, on the resolution approval as presented.
Aye.
Lando, aye.
Robinson, aye.
Dalby, aye.
Thank you. That's 5-0 to approve. And thank you, staff, for the work you put in to hear what we said at the last meeting and bring us language that met the needs of what we expected. Thank you. Okay.
I would like to also thank everybody in the audience for taking the time to be here tonight. I invite you to stay for our next item. I accidentally dismissed you too early last time, but we are talking about districting maps, and public input is always appropriate and appreciated. And also that with all of your feelings and beliefs and well meant for your children's health concerns, to please send your comments to the powers that be as well. I'm sure you are, but it's all about a unified front and making sure that everybody's heard at every level.
Thank you. Yes, please do stay.
I also have a brief comment for the public, if it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your involvement and participation. I think this is a good resolution. I think it sends a good message, and I'm proud to have been a part of it, as you all should be too. So I'm happy with this. I want everybody to know.
Thank you. Okay, the next is public hearing information on the second presentation of draft trustee area maps to be published in regard to implementation of district-based elections. Superintendent Staley.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and invite Rob from King and Associates up to take us through once again our trustee area maps.
But can we hold on a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Been going.
Yes, it's like a 5-minute recess.
Yes, we'll do a 5-minute recess. Like we're ready to start again, and we were at the hearing from Rob.
Okay, it's
Point.
my honor to introduce Rob Murray from King Consulting. Got the name clarified.
Yep, thank you, Superintendent, Board President, members of the board, and staff, and members of the public. So, sorry you just get me tonight. You'll get Jamie again next time that we are here. But we are here tonight to hold our second required public hearing after displaying the draft maps. And let's see, do we have the presentation that we can put up? Because there is a little bit of some new information that was requested at our last meeting that so that's kind of loaded in the front of this presentation. If we still want to look at any of the previously presented slides with those maps and other data that was originally released, we can do that. But for now, we can go ahead and, so we'll just review that timeline really quickly and then look at our new data. So our timeline, we are here at our second hearing. So following tonight, and then depending on what input we receive, the final map options will be available by a week from today. We'll have those, I believe, on our website so that that is visible for everybody. And then we will come back actually in January so that the board will have its opportunity to move on a particular map option at that. That would be the first opportunity to do that after having some good time there to see what comes in from public input on the website and have your own time to really digest what these options are. So that said, on to our next slide, which was, yes?
Sorry, just for clarification, originally the date was going to be the 15th of December, correct? And we just pushed it back a month so that we could allow more time for public input?
Yes, that's one big part of it, yes.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, so one of the questions that I thought was actually really interesting that came up last time, really enjoyed the opportunity to just poke around in some new data sets on these, but was the correlation of the registered voters who live in this area with that population aged 18 and over. And so you can see, looking across just that top, we refer to it as the control, but the district-wide, you have about just over 72% of the 18-plus population is registered as voters in Butte County. And we, again, just as a reminder, we looked at that by, if you just go on to the Butte County Elections Commission, you have the voter totals by precinct, and was able to and actually those precincts do correspond fairly well with the census blocks, so it did make it a pretty clean analysis to come up with this kind of deep dive into how that stacks up. And you can see there is some variation. The blue map option does have the most balance. You definitely do have parts of your district with a much higher or much lower relative percentage, down to the purple map being the with the biggest disparity, with one trustee option at 51.5% being the lowest that shows up anywhere of the 18-plus population, also being registered voters.
Dr. Kaiser?
Yeah, Rob, I mean, I was really struck by this disparity. So what is the context that you have, if you have any, about why, in two cases it was District 3, in one case it was District 4 with the blue map, why there's such a dramatic difference? I mean, to go from 92% to 60% in the blue map, and 87 to 58 in the green map, and 87 to 51 in the purple map. They were quite striking, I thought.
Yeah, go if you want to go ahead and speak on that. Yeah.
Sorry, you're probably going to say this, but I just thought it was really interesting because I'm looking at them. If you were to layer them, the overlap between those districts is the same area, which is Chico High to Highway 32 or 8th and 9th Streets, which is their whole downtown and university area.
Correct. And yeah, that was speculated some at the previous meeting, and it appears the data does bear out that there are, a lot of the 18-plus population who lives on or near campus is not registered as voters in Butte County. And so to the extent that that has any bearing on how you look at these map options, if it encourages you to suggest any potential tweaks or revisions, it's something that we can look into, or if it's just data that helps inform your feelings on these map options. But that was in terms of why it is so much higher in the area that, as you say, tops, is over 20% higher than the district average. That I have less context for, but that is tending towards the kind of northeastern and central northern parts of the district seem to be where that really heavy concentration of, the vast majority of people being potential voters are registered. But couldn't tell you exactly why some areas are just significantly higher, but certainly the areas that are consistently among the lowest, as Board Member Dalby stated, are correlated with downtown and CSU. Okay, and then one other bit of information, we can go ahead and go on to the next slide. We just did want to also look at the Hispanic Latino population as recorded by the census in 2010 and 2020. And that is just as we had indicated, but so we had already looked at the general population, but then among the Chico USD students, based on the data that we have through the California Department of Education, increased from just over 20% to a little over 25% in that same time span. And then looking at the census data, but just at the South Campus neighborhood, which was a question that came up, you see a particularly large increase in the population living in that neighborhood, from 15.7 to 26.7% who identify on their census forms as Hispanic or Latino.
Well, Chico State became a Latina serving campus in that's the last decade.
And then I think if we go on to the next slide, yes, now we're just into the presentation that you have seen before. Again, if anyone would like to revisit any material from that, I'm happy to go back into it, but I know you've all seen it at least twice by now, and so I will leave just at your discretion for anything else that you want to go over with the draft maps, which are still the same ones that were originally presented 2 meetings ago and from which we had the first public hearing at our last meeting.
Can I make a comment about how impressed I am with the work that you've done, even though I've asked some struggle questions as I'm coming to terms with all of this. Not to compare us with any other governing body, but it is interesting to see how each governing body in our region goes about it differently, and I feel like this has been a very well-informed, straightforward process for us without a whole lot of contention, and I owe it a lot of that to just your ability to answer questions about data and really sticking with, what the law is supposed to be and going from there. And so just huge kudos and thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm certainly open to all the comments anyone has along those lines. Happy to receive those. But of course, if we must, but anything else anyone wants to say. But thank you, Board Member Dalby. Okay, are we? Okay, I assume anyone.
Rob, were you going to walk through any additional stuff
The rest of the material in the presentation is all ground that we've covered before. Again, I'm happy to do if we want to do a quick fly-through of it again, just to see those maps one more time. I think that might be, so again, just a quick recap. The blue map is the one that, following input, goes, uses the high school boundary between Chico High and Pleasant Valley High as the primary way to divide trustee areas, with 2 in one high school boundary and 3 in the other, as the population actually perfectly supports that. And then using elementary boundaries as closely as possible to then divide each high school boundary into either the 2 or the 3 areas. The green option makes sure that every trustee area spans both high school boundaries. And then the purple option was another one that just, without really looking at the high school boundary, used those elementary boundaries in neighborhoods as one of the primary ways to start informing the shapes of the boundaries, while then, of course, making sure that population requirements and Voting Rights Act considerations were followed and met. So we can just take a quick look at those one more time. We can go ahead and, click through. See, there's our reminder of the neighborhood definitions that we are using, and we refer to those, and then going through just a reminder of what those boundaries currently look like for your high school and for your elementaries on the next slide. And then as we go, a reminder of some of the criteria that have, to some degree, inform these maps and data for which is provided. And then we can go into, again, while the Hispanic and Latino population is generally well distributed through your district, the one part where you have multiple census blocks that are majority Hispanic, Latino, which we make sure are not split up. And then we'll go ahead and get into the map options. Quick reminder about the census data, that we're using the census blocks, which can't be subdivided. Oh, there we go. And then so we had the blue, green, and purple options, which I've just gone over broadly, how those can be defined. And then on to, so again, just the blue option, which you can see there, areas 1 and 2 in one high school boundary, 3, 4, and 5 in the other. So you see how it, maybe not perfectly, but very closely follows that high school boundary line. And then elementary boundaries, so the green option, and once you get in the next map where you see the high school boundary on, you see that all 5 areas manage to cover both high schools, and then to the extent after following that, following elementary boundaries, and then lastly with the purple option, and you can just see these maps, kind of see the areas, and just see what looks sensible and might be reasonable boundaries to use for the election of the school board beginning in the November 2022 election. And then as we move on, we just have the detailed breakdown of census data of race and ethnicity, both for the total population and the voting age population. We have the socioeconomic data by census, median income, student free and reduced lunch percentages, and the percentage of owners and renters, and then looking at the neighborhoods, just a quick summary of how those neighborhoods are entirely within or split between trustee areas under different options. We wanted to look at the enrollment analysis, which again shows the percent of students who live in a trustee area by what school they attend. Again, you have students attending every single school who live in every possible area, but obviously you have a lot of correlation. The schools that are in those areas will also tend to make up the most enrollment. And then we just also had the breakdown by enrollment or residence of those elementary school free and reduced lunch counts, just so that that can be considered. And so next steps, again, my apologies, I did not update the date. I did not make it down to this slide, obviously, when I was updating that meeting in the January. So.
January 19th.
Yes.
The board members, do you have anything that you'd like to register in the way of support or continue on any of the maps? I have I'm going to jump in then, because I have a couple of things that over the years we have talked about when we first considered what we were going to have to do with the district maps. And one of the things that Dr. Kaiser brought up that I then thought was really significant, and that was the balancing of the median household income within the, you know, the different trustee areas. And blue is the one that seems to have balanced that the best. And I know that that is one of the things that when we were looking at some of our lower socioeconomic schools, even though they change over time and they're not always the same schools, but in knowing the, you know, the processes that of the kind of support as they move in and out of Title I and other things, that is a consideration. And I also like that the identified neighborhoods are contained within a single trustee area. That seemed to also add some cohesiveness, I thought, to what would be good in the trustee areas. Anyone have any other thoughts on that?
I guess I can add to that if we're going down this road a little bit, and for the same reasons that you've mentioned, I have been favoring the blue and the purple maps a little bit more, unless I were to receive additional input, especially from our Hispanic population. With the blue map, there's actually two areas where the Hispanic population is over 20%. In the other two options, there's only one trustee area with those over 20%, and actually over 22% in green and purple. And so where I'm starting to question is, you know, is it ideal to have two trustee areas where we have a reasonably high number of Hispanic voters, that's voting age population, or a map that has one that's even a little bit more robust with our Hispanic numbers? That is not a question for me to answer. I am not a Hispanic voter, so it would be nice to be able to hear from a Hispanic voter on that perspective, if that makes a difference in which way these maps should be weighed. Thank you for being here. So my question is, and I don't know if this is splitting hairs. That's, you know, I don't have a Hispanic perspective. So in one map, out of 5 trustee areas, 2 of them are just over 20% Hispanic voting age population. In the other 2 maps, and those are the highest, then it's 18, 16, and 12. In the other 2 maps, there's only one trustee area that is that has a higher percentage, higher than 20% voting age Hispanic, and 20% is just an arbitrary number that I've have in my head.
Can you go to the page she's referring to, which I think is probably page
It's
27? And then maybe, Ms. Dalby, would you be willing to point to the boxes that you're referring to?
Yeah. I could try to point. It's this column here. So in this column here, for voting age population, rather than looking at total population, it's the voters who will be making the decisions on the election. The blue map option has 2 trustee areas, 3 and 4, that have just slightly over 20% of the total voting population is Hispanic. And then the green map option has just district area, trustee area 1, and then the other ones are less than 20%. Again, 20% is a made-up arbitrary number in my head as like a threshold that I thought made it more significant.
So by insignificant, I mean, in theory, you would want them to all say 20% across the board? Is that what you're saying?
No. No.
I don't-
What I'm saying is when we're talking about there being close to, so I guess over 17.5%, which is the average, would be a greater proportion than the average of the whole population. And feel free to jump in and explain this better than I am.
No, so I think in this case, how you're saying this is, so district-wide of the voting age population, 17.5% indicated on their census that they were Hispanic or Latino. And so using 20 as a nice round number that is just noticeably higher than the district-wide total, you're saying that under the blue map, you at least have 2 trustee areas that meet that kind of what's your personal eyeball test of this is creating enough of a increased concentration, while you have a single higher concentration in the green and the purple. And your question is, would someone who represents the Hispanic voting population feel that one or the other of those is more beneficial?
Yes, thank you.
Well, Rob, wouldn't Ms. Public Person, would, one of the things that I saw that same thing, and I thought that that to do things any differently than what we've done in the blue would be what would normally be called gerrymandering. We'd be creating a false area, we don't want it all equal. We want it to represent the reality of what is in our community and make sure that that our populations, our Hispanic population is recognized where they are and what doing this district mapping will do. What it will do is present 2 trustee areas with a 20% population. I don't see that as anything other than just representing the reality. If we tried to change that, I think it would be effectively gerrymandering to get a false representation of what our community, how it exists.
Right. And
Mr. Tennis?
Ms. Dalby, are you thinking that you would empower the Hispanic population a little bit by kind of boosting, if you will, these 2 areas with a slightly higher representation of Hispanic voters?
Not in that way, no. I'm just comparing between maps. I'm not saying to change any of the maps, and I just want to know if the Hispanic population would feel more empowered and more represented with one trustee area that has a slightly higher representation of the total population, as opposed to 2 trustee areas that have a slightly less representation, less weight in the voting population.
So let me try to distill this question for any Hispanics in the room who might want to comment on this.
I think that she's been trying to comment, actually.
Would you rather stack Hispanics a little bit in one district, or would you rather kind of stack Hispanics in 2 districts that would have a lower population of Hispanics than the scenario where you did the 1?
I think having, like, looking at these numbers from a Hispanic perspective. But I think, like Ms. Dalby says, having just one compact that represents the majority, like in the green one, probably, is that the green one? Having one.
Yeah, purple has the highest, where nearly a quarter, it's 23.8, nearly a quarter of the voting population in District 2 is Hispanic, yeah.
To just one whole compact district that represents the majority of the Hispanic voters.
Rob, is that not kind of consistent with the spirit of this law?
Thank
a
you.
little bit?
Anticipated what I was going to say, and part of that is, there's two things here. One of which is these numbers all being, I mean, within a couple of percentage points really, is really indicative of the, like I said, relatively even distribution of the Hispanic population that resides in this district, and that it was not at all easy, short of, like I said, the kind of gerrymandering that we absolutely aren't supposed to be doing, to find any way to create a district that had just a significantly higher Hispanic and Latino population. But yes, to the extent that we can, the spirit of this is to find those classes of the population. In this case, we're looking at that by the census's race and ethnicity data, and allow that population, should that community entirely favor a certain candidate at some point, have a better chance of electing their preferred candidate. That is kind of the language that I have heard doing this for, over a few years for numerous districts. That is, as you said, the spirit of, and the intention, and the rationale for the move. And so this just shows you the extent to which the numbers bear out how that could look for various of the potential protected classes that live in this district.
Dr. Kaiser?
I'm going to argue that the other aspect of the blue that is potentially powerful is that it has the most balanced income levels by households, and all the neighborhoods are within a single trustee area, so we're not splitting up neighborhoods, because that way there are two areas where 20% are identified as Hispanic. So to me, that seems to really make the blue map have other things just besides ethnicity that might help communities unite around who they'd want to represent them.
I would almost counter the point about the household income being equal. That might not actually play out in the favor of how, what you're saying. Almost like, that would be like saying, let's make sure all of the Hispanic vote percentages are equal, and that's not what we're saying here either. Households with a lower income may have a different perspective and vote a different way than houses with an extremely high income. So if we're evening out this is like kind of getting into the weeds, but I feel, in my opinion, if we're evening out, the districts based on, sorry, my words right now. If we're going for even household median income across all districts, then we're definitely, if we were to have the data of how that voting has happened in the past, we probably would see some misrepresentation by certain socioeconomic classes, but I'm not gonna get into that because that's not what this conversation is about. But I'm just trying to say, like, I see it the opposite when we're talking about income.
I do want to mention.
That was a lot of words to say, not very much, sorry.
I do want to mention on Zoom, joining us on Zoom tonight is Jessica Hunt, our District 13 PTA representative, and I believe she has her hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I have lost the sound. Can you hear me? Yes. I just wanted to say that I have lost the sound. Can you hear me? Yes. I just wanted to say that I have lost the sound.
Floating around.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm looking at our tech guys. Oh, got it. Okay. She may have to listen on on YouTube. Okay, that makes sense. Our Zoom. That's why we hate to use it. Okay, any other questions for Rob? And Rob, we'll fix that date.
Yes, we'll fix that date, and then we'll go ahead and we'll make some large format PDF maps so that people can zoom in with aerials that hold up and all the streets labeled, so that everyone's very clear on exactly where every boundary is relative to where they are, should anyone want to get on the website and really take a close look at these.
Superintendent Staley, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tennis.
Could you write up a little summary of what I think this little substantive conversation that we had that involved this member of the public out here and Ms. Dalby, and I mean, you don't have to name a bunch of names, but just kind of highlighting and sort of memorializing this conversation about the one versus two, high density Latinos, you know, yeah, I think that's.
Yes, I have my notes on that, and I'll submit that to staff for them to know how to get it out to where it needs to go. Yeah.
Superintendent Staley, have we registered any comments on the website now that the maps have been published at all in the way of feedback?
We did have one. It was prior to the last board meeting. So I have not checked to see if we've had any prior to this board meeting. I don't know if you have seen any, Rob? No?
Okay.
Not that I have
We
seen,
need
no.
to make sure that we do go in and get that information to us before the January meeting.
Yeah. Erica has confirmed the comments are posted on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
On the redistricting page.
Okay, this is, I didn't open and close the public hearing. I will open the public hearing. And the public that's here, did we ever get the 13th District PTA person back on connected?
I believe she was just letting us know that she couldn't hear through the Zoom, so we're going to have her go ahead and listen through the YouTube channel.
I couldn't hear what you said.
She was letting us know that she could not hear through the Zoom.
Okay. And she can.
I actually can hear now.
She's back.
Do you have any comment, Madam 13th District PTA representative?
I do not. I'm still waiting for comments from our PTA board. They're supposed to be looking at the maps, but I haven't gotten any feedback yet.
And you know that the timeline now is that the 24th of January? 19th of January is when our next meeting to discuss this will be?
Yes, I do, and I will make that known to them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your help with this.
Thank you.
Okay, are we all set on what we've requested coming forward? Looks like we're good. I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, and it will be at the January regular board meeting to discuss all of this stuff. Thank you so much, everyone, for your insightful questions. Next is...
Thank you. Good night.
Oh, Rob, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
And he's very nice too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, next is the Educational Services Information Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Tina Keene, and there she is.
Hello. Yes, that's a mouthful. It's nice to see everybody tonight. We received word in October 21st, almost just a month ago, that there would be more money coming out to school districts. in the form of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. A condition of accepting the funds is that an expenditure plan has to be developed and approved by December 30th, 2021, with a public hearing included. So it's a pretty fast process. We do have a slide show here. Perfect. I know you are, yeah. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. All right, as you can see, it's a 5-year bunch of money coming through from the year, this year, 2021, through 25-26. $3.1 million is our total funding for Chico Unified that's been allocated. And it's earmarked to be used to support professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff. There are about 10 allowable uses for this money. If you click to the next slide. Areas 4 and 5 are the areas that jumped out at us, mainly because Area 4 includes counselors, and Area 5 includes our multi-tiered system of supports. Counseling, we know the Board of Trustees approved $800,000 for counselors for 2 years to support students and staff. That was recently approved by you all in the spring. This, additionally, you approved $520,000 for 2 years. If we were to utilize this money that way, years 23 through 26, that would give us 3 more years of counseling staff. You can go to the next slide there, Jay.
Where's Kevin Boltema for me to tell him? I told you. Growth mindset.
Growth mindset. It is. This shows, Tim Karras put this slide together for us to show contacts per student. And I want to make note, this is through day 62. I'm sorry that is not noted on here, but it is through day 62 of this year. Jay, I'm not sure what, I know I have that, but is it on the big slide? Tim has been out of town. We asked him to do a comparison for us from 2019-20 school year to 2020-21 school year for counseling contacts. And unfortunately, it is not included in here. I'm sorry about that because it does show quite a growth in the counseling contacts. I can tell you right now, foster, just as an example, foster youth was barely over 0.5 through day 62 to over 2.5. That's an average. So it's grown quite a bit, and again, my apologies for not having that hard copy for you.
Can we send that out?
Ms. Dalby?
Yeah, so that would be comparing the actual contacts made from 1 year to the next.
Correct.
And it would be expected that there'd be more contacts made because we have increased the staff, right?
It would be.
I don't know if we would have this data, and it's not that important, but it would be interesting on a data nerd tangent to see if the number of requests have increased, because I'm sure that there was a lot of students who didn't request or didn't know how to request before, not just contacts made, but when, almost like more of a apples to apples comparison, What's the word you're saying? What did I say that was not clear?
The contacts?
So contacts versus requests. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, not important here, but just it would be interesting to know.
There it is.
Okay.
And I think you're right. To your point, because we've increased our counseling staff and the communication with our students about the availability, I do believe that it would be higher. Yes, I do. Here's the comparison graph. Thank you, Jay, for pulling that up. Erica. The light blue, thank you. The light blue is the 2019-20 number, and the dark blue, of course, is for this year. And again, these are through day 62 on average. So you can see quite a big growth there.
Dr. Kaiser?
I also think a major point in this is having it for 5 years would let us take a kid from 8th grade to graduation, and that seems like such a critical time period in a kid's life. So
I have
think-
to tell you, when we saw this was one of the available ways to use these funds, because not only are counselors supporting all of our students, they're also supporting all of our staff with the strategies that they are able to give to administration, to teachers, to paraprofessionals, to our classified staff who work with kids on a daily basis is phenomenal. I know when I was on a site as an administrator, I relied heavily on the expertise of the counseling staff that we had there, and it was not nearly what we have now. But they were just wonderful with providing strategies that people may not know that can help make a difference with a student they're working with. All right, Jay, if you want to go to the next slide, please. The second piece that actually comes out pretty good with the math is to approve to continue with the block funding for 4 more years after the approval that the board made on this last spring for the MTSS coordinator. So that was approved in March. This would allow it to continue as we've just started the movement forward with this program of the person that does oversee the tremendous assets we already have in our Chico Unified School District working with our students. Next slide. This shows you an example of what kind of an overview of what the MTSS coordinator and Ed Services do to work together to support the academic support, social, emotional, and behavioral. There are the point twos, and down from those groups of people are our District Leadership Council, our DLC, and our K-5 reading teachers on the intervention side.
Dr. Kaiser?
Yes.
So we've had in the past a number of reports from the District Leadership Council, but we haven't ever, to my knowledge, had a report from the Counselors District Leadership Council.
Go ahead,
Thank
John.
you, Dr. Kaiser. We just created that DLC this year, and we've met about 8 times. We have 2 groups. We have an all-counselor group, so that's elementary and secondary, and we have a secondary-only group. So we have just started meeting. As I've said, we anticipate the same amount of meetings in the second semester.
I just would just strongly encourage having one of our board meetings where we get to hear from some of these individuals. That'd be great.
Thank you. I'm sure they would appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I believe we'll be addressing that in one of our workshops in the spring.
And then, of course, we have the behavioral side as well with the district lead in Jessica Capon with our site PBIS teams across the board. So as you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive overview of all of that. And again, supporting those pieces that we have already in place and that we have had in place as resources as we continue to grow a consistent program across the grade levels. So the math came out to just over 3.1 million in this, and tonight is a public hearing. It will come back to you in December. I will be back with the chance to go ahead and have an approval if that is the case.
You said that this was a public hearing. This isn't listed as a public hearing. It's listed as an informational item. That was my question, is what do we need to do to secure this funding in the program?
We have to have it approved by our board by December 30th, 2021, with one public hearing in between. So that's a pretty tight turnaround with us here. So this would be the public hearing.
So it was not listed on the agenda as a public hearing,
It's
so I don't think
informational
anybody,
only.
it's information. So we'll have to have the public hearing at the same one that it's adopted.
You said that there has to be time in between.
It would have to be adopted at the December board meeting.
We only have one meeting in December.
I need to check on that. I just want to make sure, because I thought that and Tina, we'll look at it again and get back to you, board, but I thought it was more of an informational only item to bring to the board, and if they needed to make any changes, we would make those changes before the vote in December. But I'll double check for that and get that back to you.
And it can still be a public hearing at the December board meeting, and then you'd have the public hearing, get the input, and then prior to adopting the plan.
Yeah, it just says it says here it just needs to be presented in a board meeting. It does not have to be as we are doing right now. And then adopted at the next one.
Are we good, Tina?
We're good.
Okay. Board members, do you have any more questions of Ms. Keene? Yes, this looks wonderful to be able to stretch out this support over a couple more years. Just fantastic.
Great.
I have a
Okay,
question I have actually a question for staff. I don't know. With the confusion right now, where are you getting your clarification from? Is it the instructions for the grant itself, or is it internal procedure?
From the California Department of Education.
Okay.
It actually was a federal grant originally, correct? And then
It's
went to, it was state money, and then the state, California Department of Education gave us the rules on what we needed to follow.
Okay, so, I mean, just putting it out there, worst case scenario, if we find in the fine print that it actually does require time in between, we can always do a special meeting as well.
Yeah.
So, let's get it done.
Yeah, if it means, protecting the grant, we'll meet.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Keene. Okay, next, Ms. Kruger, you're on. We have a item business services, charter school, Measure K projects request.
Yes, so the Measure K Charter School Subcommittee did meet, and there were 2 requests that came forward at the last meeting. Both items were from Core Butte Charter School. The first item is storage cabinets for the TK Center that are related to their increased enrollment, so they have more items that they need to store. These cabinets do match the cabinets that have been purchased with prior Measure K money, so it's just a continuation of increased storage there. And the charter school is requesting $35,000 for that. And they have attached the quote in your board documentation. The second request is for additional audio-visual equipment related to their board meetings because they've seen a larger increase in participants. So they need better audio-visual equipment to be able to basically host those board meetings. So they do have a quote in your packet, and they are requesting $17,500 for those. And both of those allocations are definitely within the allocation that CORE has available for them.
Okay, board, do you have any questions? Okay, do I have any requests for public comment?
There is no request for public comment.
Okay, board, do we have a motion associated with this agenda item?
I'll move to approve the request.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Landau moved, Dr. Kaiser seconded. No more discussion. I'll call for a vote. Madam Parliamentarian, we were unanimous on our last vote, so we can do a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That was 5-0. We're in favor of. Thank you. Okay, items from the floor. I think we still have one public comment request for items from the floor.
Yes, we do. I'm calling Jessica, no last name, Jessica.
Is the line ringing?
The wireless customer we were trying to attempt to notify is not available. Please try again later.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is board member requests to agendize future items to be considered. Anyone have anything? Nope, then I'd be up for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjoined. We're adjourned, board. Thank you.
Oh, I never even tried.